Hi everyone, it's Ketan Makwana here from Enterprise Lab and welcome to another edition of the League of Disruptors show. And this week we've had quite an intense week and so many different experts and business owners that have been coming onto the show from all walks of life from all over the world. And I thought it would be great to wrap up this week with my star guest, someone who's a specialist in startups, in growth and even exits. He's quite a media mogul when it comes to articles and features that have featured in all sorts of publications here in the UK and internationally. Well recognised for his expert advice in helping businesses start up, grow and exit. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce my guest for today, Carl Reeder. Carl, how are you?
Hey, I'm very good, Ketan, thank you. And you know what, I'd love to meet the guy you just described. That's a fantastic intro, and thank you so much for inviting me onto your show.
No, you're very, very welcome. In fact, actually, I think over this hour you'll get to meet him, because if you play back the video later on, you'll probably say, oh, that's an interesting guy over there. So, how are things, Carl? How are you? It's been a little while since I last spoke to you. How are things going?
It has. Things have been very good. So running at 120 miles an hour as always.
Yeah.
So I'm currently in the middle of a house move. So I'm going to apologise to all of the viewers. You'll see, but you're currently sat in my lounge. It would have been my office if our internet was up to scratch, and it would have been my home office had it not been full of boxes. So you're actually sat perched on a couple of boxes. But in terms of how business is going really well. Everyone was quite concerned about Brexit and the impact that would have on us all. But you know what? Things are flying. People are still starting up businesses. People still need advice. So no complaints here.
No, that's really good, because we'll touch point on some things like Brexit in a little while and stuff. And actually it's interesting because as I was saying to you just offline before we came live, that you're not actually the first person this week is actually moving. So it seems like it's things are moving for everyone in so many different ways and shapes and forms. And the fact that 2017 offers new opportunities, new hopes, new prospects, etc. So for a lot of the viewers that we have online today, it'd be really good for you to give them a little bit more of a background of who Carl Reeder is. So a little bit about your journey to where you got to, how you got to where you are today. More about what you do.
Yeah, of course. So at school, I didn't really enjoy the academic world. I was in a grammar school, so I was very fortunate to have a good education, but I wasn't academic. I really didn't enjoy sitting there studying, doing exams. So I left school before my GCSEs, which in 1997 was pretty much unheard of. That was the point where it was tipping towards everyone being expected to do A-levels. Although not compulsory, you were expected to go on to further education. So I left and did a YTS in hairdressing. Didn't go so well. Went back to school, did my exams, and from there I had a moment of, what do I do? I had no idea where my life was going to go. I had met a lady and had a son very early on, my eldest boy Jordan, who's now come up to 18. Bloody scary when you're only 35, makes you feel very old. I was wondering what I'd do with myself, so I got the job papers on a Thursday. Do you remember the newspapers where you go on a Thursday, look for a job?
Yeah.
And applied for a job in the army and 2 jobs at accountancy firms. So obviously going through in alphabetical order. The army turned me down, would you believe it, for being underweight. So yeah, once upon a time I was trim. The accountancy roles, I was offered both of them, so that's fantastic. Started as an accountant, but was really a square peg in a round hole. Back then it wasn't computerized so much, and there's one computer in the office. So we would have these big A3 sheets of paper. I'd be writing out all these numbers, trying to add them up. It did my head in, because what I now know, as an adult, I've been diagnosed as adult ADHD. Back then, it was known as being a naughty little sod. So I now know why I didn't get accountancy, insofar as being able to enjoy the detail and enjoy the craft of coming up with a precise set of figures.
Yeah.
But you know what I loved, Ketan? It was going out and meeting people. It was seeing business owners and asking them why they do what they do. And I was like almost like a petulant child, just going up to a business owner and saying, why do you do this? Why do you do that? Pretty soon, after speaking to business owners all over the UK, I realised that, you know what, I actually know more than them, because I could draw on the combined experiences of thousands of business owners. So last time I touched any numbers or tax returns, thankfully, was well over 10 years ago. I was very fortunate to be offered the chance to write a book. So I was offered a book contract, which had always been on a bucket list for me. I had specialised in franchising. I had always hoped to write a book in franchising, but actually the book I was offered to write on was about general business, and that became the Startup Coach. I was, as I say, I was extremely fortunate because it was with a publisher called Hodder, who are part of Hachette, who are one of the world's largest publishers. And I had no idea of the impact that would have on me personally and professionally. So the book, it was very much a case of, I don't know, Ketan, which football team do you support? I have to ask.
Sorry?
Which football team do you support?
I'm going to announce it. I support Liverpool.
Liverpool. Okay, so you will certainly know of Ian Wright. Yes. Ian Wright, in his autobiography, he mentioned about when Arsenal offered the contract to him. It was a case of, it wasn't a case of reading, it was, where do I sign? And I was very much the same. You know, I didn't look at the terms. I didn't even check my name was on it. I just wanted to sign it and get that book deal because it was a bucket list item.
Yeah.
Anyway, the book was written. It gave me a fantastic platform to be able to really demonstrate my credibility and tangible proof of what I know, because, you know, the stuff's up here. You know, all of the accumulated experience I've had through being in business myself and speaking to other businesses, it was very good to be able to demonstrate it, which led to various columns in national press, etc., etc. Yeah. Since then, it's been quite a roller coaster. So the firm that I was employed by, D&T, I actually was offered partnership back when it was a traditional accounting firm. And more by luck than judgment, I'm now a co-owner of the firm. And it's myself and my business partner, and we run it as a business, not as a professional practice, which was a very difficult jump to make when you employ over 50 accountants who are used to working in a professional practice. I've also been involved in co-founding a couple of businesses. So I've got a business brokerage website selling a franchise. I've got a business coaching network, the Bear Group. And there's also a very exciting project which I'm happy to announce here, if you wish, Ketan, if you want an exclusive.
Absolutely.
We've got Taxco, which is going to turn accountancy and professional services on its head through artificial intelligence.
Amazing. We get an exclusive as well on a Friday. So look at this journey. Hairdresser, tried for the army.
So can I just correct you? Very bad hairdresser.
Very.
I was bloody awful, Ketan. After 6 weeks, it was decided that it was best that I wasn't a hairdresser. Not only was I really bad at it, all I got to do was sweep up the floor and wash old ladies' hair. Okay, now I suffer from dermatitis. So the official excuse will be that I was getting dermatitis between my fingers. But you know what, I was dreadful. I soaped someone. I am the world's worst hairdresser. But luckily, I'm not going to be trying to pitch for you for business, am I?
Well, you're not going to pitch, no, not with this lovely. I mean, they say bold is sexy, so at the end of the day, come on, you know.
Well, let's hope my missus thinks that.
So no, it's just I think, you know, from the hairdresser side to trying for the army. I mean, you're going down that job list, and then you got to accountancy. You dropped into this. You kind of identified that there were things like attention disorders at that moment in time, but you seem to have maintained yourself within that sort of field. So you know, some people actually, like you said, with hairdresser, it wasn't the right fit, and we know that it physically wasn't the right fit. But with the accountancy, you got to a bit where actually, you know, you're talking old school A3 sheets. You're doing these numbers. Stuff was going through your head, but then eventually certain things started to sort of change for you. I mean, I just want to touch on the bit that when you started to go out and engage with people, and that's the bit that you actually found most interesting. Some people actually within their careers tend to just stay within that silo. You know, they get into a career and they think, right, that's it. You know, I am a whatever X basically, so I've got to stay in this little pot. You somehow kind of moved around a little bit, found the niche which was right for you, and then you kind of grew on from there. Now, with the fact that you've got, your practice or your business now actually works with so many accountancy firms, so many businesses and stuff like this, do you find that some of the business owners are doing that very same thing? They're kind of moving around, trying to still find their niche, or which actually is not really good, because really most of the time, unlike a career in business, you've got to kind of stay in your lane. Do you find a lot of the people that come to you and start up haven't really got a focus, and they seem to be still going through this exploration journey?
So there's a couple of questions there.
Yeah.
So I'll try and carve them out and answer each of them. And if I forget any of them, I do apologise. I'm going to blame the ADHD.
I'll remind you. Don't worry.
Excellent. So the first one that you asked, if I remember correctly, was about accountancy and how did I stay in it whilst carving out a niche. So quite bluntly, I needed to. I was a teenage father. I then, at the stage where I really realised that it wasn't right for me, I had just purchased a house and I had a mortgage to pay, so I needed to do something. I also knew deep down that there was something that could be delivered but wasn't quite being delivered. I knew that there was something more that clients wanted than a set of accounts and a tax return. Because that's just a pile of paper, or nowadays it's an e-submission. It's a list of numbers of what happened 18 months ago. But actually, there's a load of information there and a load of value that can be added. Now, I managed to define that later on when I came up with our vision for the firm, and in fact, our strapline, which is adding value, not numbers. No one can rip that off because we trademarked it. But that really sums up very simply what it is that I saw in accountancy that actually turns me on. Because sitting there in front of the calculator and adding up numbers all day long is as boring as hell. Nobody wants to do that. There's no job satisfaction there so far as I can see. So actually being able to use that data to help empower business owners is fantastic. Now, what you've said about business owners perhaps trying to push the boundaries of what they do and trying to find their niche, I think in one respect you're absolutely right. But if you've got a scattergun approach, it will never work, because whilst you might deviate along the way, you need to make sure that you stay on broadly the same track. So in business, and I'm going to bring in some traditional business models here, which I always try to translate into plain English. But you have the strategy, the tactics, and the operations. So the strategy should always stay broadly the same unless there's a massive shift either in the external market or something very dramatic internally that means you need to change your direction. Normally it's forced by technological changes or political changes, regulation changes, that kind of thing. But your tactics of how you get there might change from day to day. You might decide that your management method that you use to actually reach that end goal changes, provided the end vision is the same. That's okay, and in fact, if you're not nimble as a business, that's a problem. But you need to make sure that when you say you stick to the knitting, you need to make sure that to some extent you stick to the general vision, which is making that jumper.
Yeah, no, I feel that, and I hear what you're saying, and I think I suppose part of the context of it is business owners today, especially who are coming into the startup world, tend to have a lot of impatience. They expect results very, very quickly, and the reason this is because they see this facade through social platforms of people succeeding and achieving, and everyone's celebrating their successes. Oh, I got another order, or I got a new client, or I'm doing wonderful, or I've just bought a Ferrari, whatever it is in this respect, and they kind of get to this environment where I can see that the perception of a new startup is very much that, it's easy, I can get in there and away we go. Now what happens is reality kicks in after 6 to 8 weeks of trying to launch or sell a product or a service that they've designed. Part of their strategy and part of their tactics, as you mentioned, the strategy is pretty much the same, the tactics are a little bit more fluid. But I get the sense that sometimes people, because of their impatience, they see that something's not working, and they feel that they need to drastically change this. And what I mean by that is sometimes, I'm not saying that they change the industry or change the product or service completely, but they start to actually bring a sense of their product or service or their reason for being there and the value propositions that they provide, they start changing these quite dramatically. And I think that often confuses the audience, and it kind of almost pushes you down. If there was a pecking order for you to be purchased as a business, it puts you back down at the bottom of the pecking order again, because you're almost starting from scratch.
Ketan, I couldn't agree more. And I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I really couldn't agree more. There's, again, the old analogy of the iceberg, that you see the tip of it, but the majority of it is underwater. Yeah. There's no such thing as a get-rich-quick scheme, and I think a lot of business owners subscribe to, even though they think they're more intelligent than this, they subscribe to the notion of a get-rich-quick scheme. So they think that Google pay-per-click or Facebook ads or whatever the latest thing is, whether it's remarketing or whatever it is they're doing, they think that that's going to be the magic pill they need to transform their business. And the reality is that there's a combination of two things that business owners need to do to make sure that they're a success. Now, the first one is to not procrastinate. So many business owners will start using a time management tool that I call creative avoidance. So they will find stuff to do to keep themselves busy. So they will design business cards, they will design leaflets, they'll come up with spreadsheets with loads of numbers and detail in there. They will do everything they can apart from actually get out there and do what they need to do to sell their stuff. So that's the first thing. Secondly, if they actually get down to doing that, so if they go from entrepreneur to entrepreneur, the next thing that I find is a lack of consistency. Because it's the same as anything that we try to apply ourselves to in life, whether it's learning. If you're trying to learn French, it's very simple. Learn 5 words a day and keep learning 5 words per day. It's that simple. If you want to lose weight, aim to lose £1 a week and keep losing £1 a week. If you want to make a successful business, you work out what your core activities are, what it is you need to do, and keep doing it, because it won't come overnight.
I love that. I love this piece, because actually what this kind of relates to a certain extent is the fact that people are, like you used the metaphor of weight loss and learning a language in this respect. And I think what people do is they just keep in sight this end result. I'm going to be able to speak to French, or I'm going to have lost all of this weight. I've lost 10 stone, or whatever it is that they want to lose. And the same thing in a business context is, I'm going to get to £1 million. I'm going to get to £1 million. Now, I hear that we need vision boards, and we've got to have all these kind of things to keep our motivation. But what you've actually just pointed out there is micro goaling. It's creating micro goals which are achievable on a day-to-day basis, on a daily basis, rather than over time. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely right. So to give an insight of what I do in my business is, we set an annual goal. So the annual goal is in line with our long-term vision. We then chunk that down into 3-month sprints. So those targets, even though they come to the same number as an annual target, they become so much more realistic. So let's take, for example, if you're aiming for, and I'm going to use some very simple numbers for the maths. If you're aiming for, let's say, a 400k increase in turnover, if you break that down to 100k per quarter, which then becomes 33k per month, which is actually then just £1,000 a day.
Yeah.
That's so much more achievable. If your average sale value is £2,000, actually you only need to make a sale every 2 days. It becomes so much easier to get your head around the targets, which could be quite enormous when you first set them. The other thing as well that I do is, on a day-to-day basis, I write out the most important tasks that I need to complete, and I actually get onto them. And they are always aligned to the key activities that make my businesses a success. So, it's very simple. For me, businesses are actually all about getting customers and keeping customers.
Yeah,
that's pretty much it.
No, absolutely. As we talked about simplicity in your goal setting, obviously you had that bigger vision in mind to say, okay, you want to raise the revenue by 400k, but look how you broke that down. You broke it into quarters, then you broke it into month, then you broke it into week, and then it's almost giving you that day. And it's your focus doesn't become, I've got to get 400k in. It's, I've got to go and get £1,000 in.
Absolutely.
In that sense, so the economy of scale in terms of your ability. I suppose that could even be chunked down even further. Okay, I need to get 1,000 in. Right, does that mean I've got to go and get 10 £100 customers, or am I going to get 2 £500 customers?
Absolutely. But then the other thing you can do from there, once you've chunked it down to that level, provided you've been in business, you've been consistent, you've been doing your activities, you will have an idea of what your ratios are. Yeah. So let's say you need to go out and drop leaflets through doors. It sounds very antiquated nowadays, but you know what? That kind of thing still works.
Yes.
If you know that your average customer value is £1,000, and you know that you need to drop 10,000 leaflets to get one customer, then you know what? You know that you need to drop 10,000 leaflets today. It's that simple.
No,
it's a mathematical formula. That's all it is.
It is, and I mean, we've had the irony of consistency is that, throughout all the expert interviews that I've been doing, people have been talking about habits, people have been talking about rituals that they have, people have been talking about consistency, about continue showing up. Now, I think this whole thing about digital marketing and stuff like this. I mean, you mentioned the flyer in terms of getting the leaflets going through a letterbox. The TV is now becoming what the radio was to us.
Yes.
Our smartphones are our new TVs. Look, you and I are on digital platforms today, sharing our expertise in the way that we do. But I find that people, like you said earlier, they become busy in things from a point of, okay, I'm doing some great things, I'm going to perfect my website, I'm going to perfect all these kind of things, and they forget, whether it's they forget or they're ignoring the actual sale part. I think, what's your take on new startups and early stage businesses and their fear of going out and selling?
Okay, so I think there's a fear of both selling and marketing.
Yeah.
So the fear of selling, I think it's down to a lack of confidence, a lack of true internal belief about their product. So whilst they might superficially be able to prepare a business plan, they don't truly engage with the words and the numbers in there. They are just words and numbers. It's not from the heart. They don't fully embrace what the business actually is. And if you can't do that, you can't make a sale. If you can do it, if you're passionate about something, if you really, really get it through every bit of your being, then you never sell to anyone. It just happens. From the marketing perspective, I think the biggest weakness I see of many startups is that they have this delusion that the internet is the only way to generate business. Now, I don't know if that's driven through a belief that it's easier, or I don't know if it's driven by a belief that it's cheaper. But actually, these things tend to have a way of levelling out. So you take Google pay-per-click, for example. If you bid 10p and you manage to become top of Google, you know what? Someone tomorrow's going to bid 15p, and it will get to a point where the market will dictate the rate that should be.
Yeah.
Now, the market will dictate that rate in the same way that the market will dictate print advertising. So if the value of print advertising goes down, guess what? You're going to get a better deal. These ways will always come out in the wash, and ultimately you need to work out your marketing methodology that can touch the customer in as many different ways as possible. Because, whilst we spend far too much time on Facebook, we don't spend all of our time there.
No.
And a purchase, whether it's goods or services, whether it's £1 or £1 million, it's based on trust. And trust comes from having an awareness that a business is there, it's around, and it's everywhere. People want to buy into something that they feel has got some kind of social proof and track record, even if it's brand new. Things that we've done recently, we've got a billboard. We've put a billboard up, and it's in a town centre location. We've been very fortunate that the market for billboards is shocking at the moment. We paid for it up until the end of May, and it's still up today. Okay, we paid £2,000, and we've had a billboard. You know how big a billboard is.
Yeah.
It's effectively a shop front that would have probably cost us, I don't know, maybe £20,000 for the year.
Yeah.
Going where other people aren't in terms of marketing is a key thing. And I say, when it comes to sales, going back to your original question, as I said, I strongly believe it's a lack of true confidence of what they're doing. There's the self-doubt that comes in. Will someone really buy this from me? Will they really believe in me? Will they really believe in the product or service?
And that comes. Do you think a lot of that comes down to the fact that those that are coming into the market, starting up in this arena, are just looking across the fence and seeing what others are doing and saying, well, if they can do it, I can do it. So it's not, there is comparisons. All right, we're not talking about competition, we're talking more about comparison. How is it that person can go off and travel the world and speak on stages, or how is it this person can have 6 to 10 clients coming in a month? Why is it this person's got so many people in their Facebook closed groups and stuff like this? So I think that's
part of it. So there is a fair amount of envy that can bring about. I mean, I refer to the phrase, I hate all of these bastardizations of the word entrepreneur, but the entrepreneur who wants to do it because they feel that it's the thing that they need to be seen to be doing. They see The Apprentice, they see Dragon's Den, they feel that it's the fashionable thing to do. Now, being driven with jealousy or envy as a motivation is never a good way in general, let alone in business. And constantly having an eye on the competition is only going to do one thing. It's just going to make sure that you're behind them because you're not thinking about where you need to be. So that is a real challenge. Now, another challenge is, which is related to that, is the motivations. Because to be a successful entrepreneur, you need to be incredibly self-driven, because there's no boss telling you what to do. There's no manager giving you a pile of work and saying, do that and do it in this order. Instead, you need to be the one who wakes up in the morning and decides to do what you do. That's not an innate skill or personality trait that everybody's got. So when people are inspired by others, which is great, don't get me wrong, it's amazing when people are inspired. When they're inspired by someone, but they're only doing it because they've seen the end results and they feel that they deserve it as well, that there's that sense of entitlement, the motivation behind it is completely misaligned.
No, I totally concur, and it's one of the things that the reasons to why I asked that question to you in this respect. Now, in the fact that if we put motivations to one side, we've got consistency as a key. You mentioned the fact that, at the end of the day, you've got to be self-driven, and accountable. Remember, when you're in the world of business, not entrepreneurship, but when you're in the world of business, you start each week, each day with a blank canvas again. It's kind of, it's not a situation where you have that security net of someone's going to pay your wage, even if you didn't make the sales or the performance for that week or month. Basically, the expectation of on the 25th of each month there's something sitting in your bank balance to pay your bills. So I just want to move the conversation very much away from the holistic side of mindset and attitude and behaviors of the startup to those that are driven by money within this. Now, there's nothing wrong with wanting to become wealthy or start a business so you make money. I mean, that's one of the reasons to why most people are in business. At the end of the day, if you're not making money, you haven't got business. But what is your take and what is your opinion on the fact that if motivation isn't about what someone else is doing across the road and I can do it, it's now I'm just driven by making money. What kind of impacts does that have on startups as well?
Okay, so being motivated by money is absolutely fine. I believe that as a nation and in fact as a society, we've been led to believe that we really should be presenting ourselves as having some higher goal, wanting to do something to give back. But you know what? If it's a Ferrari or a yacht that floats your boat, fantastic. Have that as your driver. But I don't believe that money alone will be the thing that will really push you to success. So let me tell you a story from a personal perspective.
Sure.
When I was about 22, 23, I guess, I thought I was doing okay for myself. I had a new BMW on HP, and I thought I was doing all right. But something was missing. So I set myself a set of goals. I pulled out a notebook and wrote out a list of things that I wanted. Now, some of these things were as simple as a pair of churchy shoes, right the way through to a Range Rover Sport. And I set my target of achieving those by the age of 30. Now, funnily enough, just after the age of 30, I had ordered that Range Rover Sport, and you might say it's fantastic, but I felt really empty. I felt like something had been almost taken away from me, almost like almost like a death. You know, it's horrible to compare it to that, but I felt like there was this real void in my life, and I didn't know what it was. And actually, it took me a year until I found that book and read through it and realised that actually I'd got everything that I'd set out, and hadn't continued to reset that. Now that's the problem with financial goals. A financial goal, whatever it is, whether it's as simple as you want to earn £1,000 a week, or whether it's you want a net worth of £1 million, whether it's that you want a £100 million property, whatever that goal is, it's a quantifiable amount. But once achieved, there's nothing beyond that. So having a set monetary goal is all well and good until you hit it. Actually, there needs to be something beyond that drives you on and on. So whether it's your passion for what you do, whether it is giving back, it could be a charitable thing, it could even be a spiritual thing, whatever that is. I know we're slipping back into the mindset.
That's fine.
But I think that the monetary targets have to be backed up by something else that help to push you through when you have your little wins, to make sure that you don't take your foot off the gas.
It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And then, look, you know, Carl, everything's interlinked in that sense. It always does come back to your mindset. It's one of the reasons to why we at Enterprise Lab work on things like mindset, attitude and behaviour, because they're the cause. You know, absolutely. I'm a believer of, you know, a 1% change in perception equals 100% change in your result. So because of the domino effect it has on your perception, your behaviour, your attitude, and then your actions. So,
and in fact, so can I just cut in to give some? Because I'm very conscious we've spent half hour or so talking about mindset and all the fluffy stuff, but a very practical tip for businesses as well. You know, when it comes to employment, one of the phrases that I always trot out is that businesses hire on skill but fire on attitude. You know, we always employ people who we think can do the job, but we don't look at will they do the job and will they fit in.
So, are you saying that it should be flipped the other way? It should be.
Yeah, but skills can be taught. Skills can be taught. I mean, Ketan, what are you skilled at? What are you skilled at?
Probably doing this show, being creative, everything. Yeah, I get it. I get that it's a competency in that sense, but the attitude.
The competency can be taught. With effective management and effective training, you can teach this stuff. What you can't teach is the ability to be self-driven, to answer the phone with a smile, to go over and above what anyone expects. You just can't teach that. That's either within you or not.
Yeah. Do you know what? That's a really, really amazing point. And I think that doesn't just resonate with the fact of when you're employing someone, it can actually be based on your skill and your attitude towards your business, because there's a lot of solopreneurs in that respect. You know, when we talk about that, they think, well, okay, I'm good at this, so I can naturally run a business in this. But their attitude towards their business stinks, even though they're good at the doing or the creative or the hands-on part of the business, they're not good at the business element of it.
Absolutely. Do you know there's 4.4 million solopreneurs out there? Yeah. That's a huge percentage. I think it was 75% of all businesses have no employees at all.
Yeah.
So that's a huge number of businesses out there. Now, of those, you're absolutely right that they might be a real master at what it is they do, the technical side of a business. Yeah. But when it comes to actually running that business, most of them, I'll be very honest, they're pretty hopeless. They don't get that the business is actually something beyond themselves, whether they've got employees or not.
Yeah.
And the biggest failings I see is when you have a business owner that will have conflicting goals. So they might want a Monday to Friday 9 to 5, but they also want to retire on a beach, and they also want a 20 million turnover business in 2 months. You know what? The three of those ain't going to happen. Your goals need to be in alignment, and you have to accept that you have to take the rough with the smooth. So if you want a business that's going to be a multi-million turnover business, I've been fortunate enough to get to that stage, but I know it's bloody hard work.
Yeah.
And you can't decide to be a multi-million turnover business and not bother to turn up and not bother to do any work. You know what? You've got to graft for it. On the flip side, if you want a lifestyle business, if you want to be a solopreneur and just have a standard of living that matches your current income, but without the boss breathing down your neck on a Friday afternoon so you can go and play golf, again, that's absolutely fine. You just need to make sure that the personal goals and business goals are congruent.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Guys, we've got the amazing Carl Reeder on live today. We've got him on for another 25 minutes or so. So if you've got any questions...
You're lucky,
yeah, I know. You're very lucky. Lucky to the fact that you've only got 25 minutes left. It's just lucky to the fact that we have you on. I just want to go and say some highs to people that are tuned in. Chris Richards is saying hi. Dan Meredith, he's joined us from Thailand. Jonathan McDonald's on. Harun Rubani, Kerin from South Africa. Marcus Doggered, Paul Cissay's watching, Gabby, Julia's there, Alex Springer's joined us as well. So we've got a number of different people from different parts of the world.
Guys, that's fantastic to hear you all viewing, because whilst Ketan can see this, I can't see it at all. So hello to you all.
So it's I want to flip the script a little bit now.
Sure.
We talked about we've talked about startups, we've talked about the mindsets, we've talked about attitudes. We over the last 5 years, as an economy in the UK, we've been focused on startups. Especially since the economic downturns in 2008, 2009. Recession hit. A lot of people lost their jobs. There were a lot of people that went into self-employment. The government initiated things like the startup loan scheme, which
Sure.
I've been kind of involved with in the past, really to drive and spark the startup community. And I understand that startups are, the underbelly of a local economy. They help re-stimulate because there's local trade. Through a startup, there is more disposable income that can be generated, and through that allows the economy to start moving forward. But over the last 2 years to 3 years, we've also started to focus on scaling up businesses. We can no longer, as economies around the world, focus or rely on corporations to be able to keep the job weights going, because any fluctuations in markets or politics, and all of a sudden there's 10,000 jobs being lost in any kind of sector, whether it's retail, banking, or whatever you want to pick. Take your pick of an industry. Look at a corporation; they're shelling jobs. They do say that corporations are job killers, and they say that startups are the fuel for life. But the problem is, a startup it doesn't have enough cash, it doesn't have enough weight, it doesn't have enough of an infrastructure to support a whole economy. Now, you've mentioned 4.4 million solopreneurs or businesses with no employees in there, but these are micro businesses that are actually fueling the baseline of an economy.
Absolutely, and I think this is a common misinterpretation of the word startup, because there's actually two types of startup out there.
Yes.
You've got your individual who decides to set up an Etsy shop, and they enjoy arts and craft, and they do some, they make some jewellery and they sell it for $5 a pop. Yeah. They do it themselves. They've got no intention of getting any bigger, because you know what? They want to be the ones who put their hands on, their stamp on every single product. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. That's one kind of business, and that's the 4.4 million. That's the 1 in 7 of us out there who are self-employed.
Yeah.
You then have startup. You could be called in Airbnb and Uber startups, and they are a completely different beast to your man or your lady who enjoys making jewellery and sells it for a few quid on Etsy.
Yeah.
But both of them are, if you were to look at the literal definition of startup, have started up a business. Now, the scale-ups, which is what most people commonly refer to as startups, so the scale-ups, those who are starting with the very deliberate intention to raise funding as quickly as possible, actually to not make a profit, because making a profit will sacrifice their ability to grow and reach scale quicker, and to really push forwards and innovate. They are the future of the new corporation, but they will be the new corporations in the future.
Yes.
The corporations that we have now, the BPs, the Vodafones and so on, they started up and scaled at one point, because for every one of them there would have been smaller businesses that didn't succeed.
No, 100%. But the thing is, again, I think I suppose the point I'm getting to here, especially with in the UK, I've had the privilege of working with Sherry Couture and the whole scale up and the boost program that was being setting up here. We had Innovate UK in the UK to really start pushing through. Naturally, with the reduction in the 17% that was reduced during the previous autumn statement by the previous Chancellor of Exchequer, a lot of programs got cut off. Now it's one of the things that I talk a lot about in global and world economies, in the sense of whether I'm here in the UK or if I'm working in other countries. If we're to see stabilization of an economy, we need to see more and more small early stage startups or startups become SMEs, and SMEs to become sort of mid to large size organizations, because that's where the net of new jobs, and that's where the net of new economic value is going to come on. So I know you've got a point on this. So I'm just going to ask you the question, then put your point, and then you can answer the question. What do you believe are the key things that early stage startups who are perhaps watching this need to start considering when they're starting to embark on their journey to scale up?
Okay, so first of all, they need to, and the point that I was going to raise, so actually teed me up nicely, is that most of them don't want it. While superficially they might say they want it, deep down they don't want it, because if they wanted it, they would do it. If they wanted to grow, if the Etsy jeweler wanted to run a big operation and compete with, I don't know what the modern equivalent would be, Ratners, I get. If they wanted to compete with churning out cheap jewellery, they would go to the bank and say, look, I've got this idea, I buy the stuff for £1 and sell it for £5. This is what I need to put in the process, this is the funding that I need to make it happen. But they don't do that. They stick at their comfort zone of being a solopreneur. But for those, carving out those that don't want it and know that that's not for them, those that do want it, they really need to actually take a serious approach to business. Now, what I mean by that is, as a solopreneur, you can get away with setting up a web store, you can get away with doing some Facebook ads, having a Facebook page, there could be a few typos in it, it can look a bit sloppy, it doesn't really matter. As long as you make enough to get by, actually, any tweaks that you make to it and trying to perfect it, that creative avoidance we talked about before, that will only actually deliver an incremental increase. And because you're not actually doing that much, there's no real value in doing that. There's no point in having paying a proofreader to go through your website, because actually you're going to be far better off going to a craft market, laying out a stall and putting your products on there. For those who've got a robust business, actually, this is when, if you excuse my, am I allowed to swear on here?
Yeah, of course you are. So Disruptors.
Fantastic, Ketan, I love you. This is where shit gets serious. And you actually need to have a proper business plan. You actually need to have a proper strategy. You need to map out your organisational chart. You need to map out your functional departments. You need to work out, if you've got a business partner, how you're going to work with them. On that note, a fantastic one where we talked about entrepreneurs earlier. Might operate in their niche, but sort of hover around that lack of focus. That's a very common trait amongst entrepreneurs. It just goes with the messed up personality that I guess we've got. There's a fantastic book called Rocket Fuel by a guy called Gino Wickman. I don't know if you've heard of it, but Rocket Fuel sets out a proposition that most successful businesses have a visionary, so a Steve Jobs, a Walt Disney, etc., and a right-hand man, an integrator. Yes. So somebody who actually takes all that crazy crap that comes out of their mind and distills it into a workable, manageable set of tactics. Yeah. They're the ones who bring together the functional department, so the finance department, the operations department, the sales and marketing teams. They bring them all together and make sure that the guys can speak to each other. And they make sure that there's a buffer between the nutcase at the top, who is here, there and everywhere, and the team that actually need to deliver.
I've seen something similar in like EMT models, entrepreneur, manager, technician.
Absolutely.
So
strategic tactical operation, it's all polishing a turd in a different way. It's the same stuff, and it's really needed. You need to, if you are trying to scale up, you need to really appreciate not only where your strengths are, but also where your weaknesses are, and where you need to either attract funding or attract the right people, or whatever it is, so that you can fill those gaps. Because one man can't do it all, one lady can't do it all. It's impossible to be the perfect entrepreneur, manager and technician. I think of it as a scale of 100%, and all of us have a different percentage load in each area. So for myself, I know that by far my personal weak spot is management. I'm absolutely hopeless at the day-to-day management. I love coming up with the ideas and coming up with systems, but actually when it comes to implementing and making sure they follow day to day, making sure that there's the right appraisals on them, etc., performance management, that's not my bag. The eye for detail that's needed for management just isn't in me personally. But I know certainly my business partner, he is the out and out detail person. So when we come together, it's almost like coming up with I'm trying to think of the ideal analogy, yin and yang almost.
Yeah.
But actually, opposite strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to have those. You've got to have complementary skill sets, but it's also the other side of it is you've also got to be able to fill each other's gaps. So whilst you are visionary in what you're doing creative, you've got to have someone who's strategic and operational driven. And whilst that person's operational strategic driven, you need a doer who's going to go out and actually get it done. Because even within those kind of paradigms, in the fact that, when you start off and you're a solopreneur, you are the visionary, you are the strategist, you are the executor. But like you say, over time, as you go in time, you start to realize where your superpower kind of sits within the realms of things.
Absolutely. And I'd carve that up a little more. So I think that you have the entrepreneur, the manager, and the technician. I think that the management role, the word manager is used for so many different jobs. Yeah. And it was a mistake we made probably about 10 years ago to, actually a bit less than that, to appoint a bunch of managers and expect them to be relationship managers, expect them to be quality control managers, expect them to be process managers. They're actually very different jobs with a similar job title. Yeah. You can't expect one person to actually be good at process and detail, but also to be really good with people and to leave people with a smile on their face. Yeah. The two don't marry up. Yeah. So I think whilst the vision is quite clear and I think that it is limited the number of people in an organisation who can be visionary, because the worst kind of partnership, the sinking ship, is when you've got two visionaries. Yeah. And they have an idea. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, because of the clashes.
But actually, it goes back to that pyramid model.
Yeah.
At the strategic and operational side, you need people who are good at kicking off. You need people who are good at completing. And again, they're two very different people.
Yes.
The likelihood is that people who can get stuff started are only good at that because they're not finishing off the stuff they've started before. So you need the mix of kick-off and completion. Yeah. You need a mix of the different managerial styles. So it really is quite a complicated beast to get your head around when coming up with an organisational chart.
No, absolutely. But I think the ethos of, and I want to move on to one last topic piece before we run out. We're running out of time. We're only about 13 minutes left on this show.
Time fly when you're having fun.
Absolutely, especially when we're into this engagement. But one of the key elements of, I guess, what you're saying there is, if you are a business that wants to grow, if you want to be that micro business that turns into a small to medium, or from a small to medium that goes into a large organization, innovation is one thing, and we could talk about innovation on another topic tomorrow. But the whole structure of your business needs to be redefined. It needs to be realigned. You need to, it's no longer this thing where you are the vision, the ops, the management, the executor, the completer. It's almost that, as you start to grow, you've got to start to branch out all those different elements to it. So here in itself, human resource becomes a major entity within this process, along with digital resource as well.
There's also step changes. So that's we say go from one to many, for example. So to go from one employee to two employees, you've got to have a complete change of mindset. But there's also other points on the journey where you need to have a change of mindset. So you can bumble along to, let's say, 10 employees, but the mentality, the managerial style that you'll have, the processes and the systems will be restricted at 10 employees. You'll then need to jump through another barrier, which will take investment. It will take pain. It will take some horrific self-evaluation where you realise you're not quite as good as you think you are, to then break through. You'll then have another wall at 50 staff, and you constantly come up against these walls in business. But as you grow, the shape of a business changes, and it goes from being a solopreneur to a micro business, to whatever terms you want to use, to a small business, to a medium business. And along that way, the definition of an SME is just crazy. It's any business with up to 250 employees.
Yeah.
Now, tell me a business that's got one employee but looks like a business that's got 250.
Yeah.
It's madness. And I think the phrase SME, I'm sorry, I'm going off on a tangent here, but the phrase SME doesn't do small businesses any favours, because actually it gives the illusion that scaling up is as simple as raising cash and just putting more bums on seats and bringing more money in. And it's really not, because the skill set needed to effectively run and manage a team of 250 is completely different to even managing a team of 75.
You're bang on. I understand this, and one of the reasons to why I bring the kind of topic about scalability is the fact that actually what I do find, especially internationally, I'm doing a lot of work at the moment in Central and Latin America, and over there you tend to find that a lot of the business owners are setting up their businesses almost as if they're corporations when they're not. Which creates very robust pillars. The way a corporation works is, they're talking thousands and thousands, at tens or hundreds, employees. You just talked about the minutiae from 10 to 25 to 35 to 50
sure.
to 250, and that represents a small to medium enterprise. What we tend to find is people think, right, I've got to structure my business very robustly like a corporation, and the problem with that is you become really stiff. If you try to become flexible with, or you try to adapt to a fluid landscape or an environment within, business environment, what happens is imagine you're a ruler and you bend that ruler, eventually it's going to snap. The problem you have is a lot of people are trying to do something that they're actually not.
Yes. Ketan, there's one phrase for it, dick waving.
Yeah, call that again.
Okay, so it's you take, I don't know if you ever watched Only Fools and Horses, but you take when Del Boy advised Denzel to call himself Transworld Global.
Yeah.
He's a delivery driver, dropping stuff around in Peckham, and he's at Transworld Global. There are a number of small businesses that feel that they need to do what a much bigger business does.
Yes.
And you're absolutely right. It introduces a layer of bureaucracy, a layer of rigidity, but you're stuck in a certain way of doing things, which certainly in the early days you just cannot be. And my only advice to people who are believing that that's the right way to go is actually to look at companies like Intuit, like Apple, who are trying to reverse engineer the startup mindset and startup attitude and culture into their existing dinosaurs.
Yeah.
They're trying to make their business into a startup rather than sticking to these rigid rules, processes, organisational charts and so on.
There are so many corporations now that are there was a wave where they were investing into incubators. And I think what they were soul searching for their next sort of wave of ideas or products or services that will allow them to sort of get back into the market. I mean, the corporation is now, the directors or board people of corporations are looking at their business and saying, why is it someone like an Uber can come in 5 years and almost have the same or higher net worth than us, and we've been going for 50 years? I mean, obviously time has changed, and and again, with time against us, on this, it's very much a situation where they're reverse engineering the other way. They're going back the other way and say, how do we actually what do we need to do to actually bring this more of a startup culture in? And I'm not just talking about jeans and trainers and t-shirts type of culture. Seriously thinking about the entrepreneur that's going to be able to bring the next innovation into their business. This is why I say innovation is going to be a big key for those SMEs and large organizations to drive forward. Without innovation, design thinking, they're not going to be able to become the next corporation.
This is it, and that goes across everything. So not just in products or services, but the way you do things as well. So we've spent a bit of time talking about organisational charts.
Yeah.
I heard of an organisational chart, which was a circle with little clouds interlinked into it. And that's just a different way of thinking about how an organisation should be structured. Going back to whether a startup or scale up, whatever phrase we're going to use, going back to whether they should use an organisational chart or not, what I would say is that whilst they shouldn't implement the corporate processes, they should have in mind why the corporates do it.
Yes.
What they're trying to achieve, and the broad functions of a business, so that it might not be as formal as McDonald's, for example. However, if they've got in their mind the reasons why McDonald's have that and what it is they're trying to achieve, the fact that they want the burger flippers to be separated from the cashiers, from the managers, etc., that will really help enlighten the thinking, so that as the business gets to the stage where it does need a minimum level of bureaucracy, they're well equipped to actually have already identified how it needs to be prepared.
No. I mean, that's spot on advice. It's spot on tips and stuff like this. So we're gonna finish with one of the conversations that we started with, and I've purposely left it with a very short amount of time because I really want to smash into it very, very quickly. And you mentioned Brexit earlier on. I was someone that voted to remain in. I watched everything. I could see why we were going down this whole referendum of out. Article 50 hasn't been, activated as yet, and all this kind of stuff. But there was massive scaremongering, confusion, all this kind of stuff going on. I got pretty much pissed off with the fact that too many people going out, especially people who are recognised here in our country, to be, they were going out scaremongering. What is your future going to be like? How are you going to do this? How are you going to do that? And I'm like, people look up to you for advice, guidance, and progression. And here you are scaremongering them. I said, wouldn't it be easier to give them more practical tips? Now, one thing that I did within my business is I immediately, as soon as I felt the vibrations of the referendum, is I internationalized very, very quickly.
Yes.
Now, the bonus of not being a corporate structure means that I can make very, very fast decisions. So, and what I mean by internationalization, it's not that I already had international clients, but I was trading in pounds. What I did is I cut everything on the Monday and I said, right, that's it. From now on, we're trading in the dollar. Okay.
Sure.
And what we did is we pushed out straight into the market because now we're a cheaper proposition because the pound has come down. And I went to every single international opportunity that we had and I said, you've got a small period of time where you're going to get me this price. You better start buying. You better start buying. And we actually exponentially grew our book in terms of clients and uptakes and contracts. Within like 90 days, we'd seen more business activity than we'd seen pretty much for the first 2 quarters of the year. And for me, I just want to get a couple of pointers and your stance on Brexit and the need for businesses here in the UK to really start considering internationalization. And to finish that off, if you're not internationalizing, what should you be doing with this whole thing that's happening with Brexit?
Sure. Well, it's really funny. I was actually having a conversation with someone, and as you were saying it, I was trying to rack my brains who it was. It was earlier this week, who actually did exactly the same. They reached out to their international partners and said, look, we will... They actually said we will lock our rate at the lowest rate the pound goes to, just as a sign of goodwill to keep up trade. And you know what? They had a massive increase in their business through doing that. Yeah. Brexit, taking a step back from utilising the advantageous position that we've got at the moment for exporting, Brexit as a whole has been a really interesting situation. I think from a personal perspective, I was out. But the biggest concern to me was the social divide that came up from Brexit, in that you had the nastiest elements on both sides, where actually I genuinely think that 75% of us wanted the same thing, which is the best result for our country, but just a different way of getting there. We just had different ideology of how to get to that good result. Now, the realities for business is that the no vote is going to, without doubt, cause uncertainty. And you're going to have idiots on, certainly on the Leave side, you have idiots who are going to be focusing on the headline-grabbing reasons, not the real reasons. So for me, I'll be very open, I voted on the basis of democracy. I quite like the fact that the person I vote for is directly representing me, etc., etc. I don't like the way that the European Parliament is structured. However, there were a lot of idiots who took it on the immigration bandwagon. This guy's taking my job. Now, the flip side of that is that for small businesses, if that kind of mindset is adopted by the government and they accept this guy's taking my business, he shouldn't come in, this will cut off, we talked about digital businesses, this will cut off a stream of very talented coders. This could be a real risk to our country if we focus on the negative parts of the out campaign. Likewise, if we focus on the scaremongering of the in campaign, which was the emergency budget that will have to be held the next day, corporation tax will have to be sliced down immediately. We've not seen any of that either. Not to even mention the NHS debacle. But yeah, there was a whole load of scaremongering. The biggest risk to businesses is being consumed by this scaremongering. So actually, I think the steps that businesses need to take, first of all, is look in-house, reassure your team. We actually had a really interesting challenge. We didn't know which of our team members were EU nationals or not without going through passports, because you don't look at someone and say they are their nationality.
Yeah.
They are John, or it's whoever the person is. It's not their nationality. So you need to first of all reassure your team that you'll support them in any way possible through the turbulent times. The challenge, obviously, with the currency rates, we need to keep an eye on that, because at the moment it's very attractive for exporters, but for importers, it's tough out there. It really is. And with the risk of tariffs, we don't know where that's going to go. The other thing is just the reassurance outside of your business. So making sure that your trading partners are satisfied that they can still do business with you. Because what business owners need to remember, Ketan, is you and I, we lived through this. We breathed it. It was in the newspapers every single day. Outside of the UK, do you know what? They probably didn't care as much as us.
No.
It was probably just something that was maybe a column in the newspaper, maybe the day it happened, a front page. But actually, we've got idiots in our country, and I'm perhaps referring to them a bit harshly, but you know what? There was a YouTube video of someone who thought that they couldn't go to Disneyland Paris because of Brexit. Yeah. They thought the borders would be closed. Yeah. Okay. Now, whether that's a joke video or not, it wouldn't surprise me if there were people who are uncertain of what Brexit actually means. Now we have this news and we have the information day in, day out. You're a small business owner in France or Italy or Germany won't have the level of information that we've got. So there's just as much risk, but they might not actually appreciate what Brexit actually means and whether they can still trade with us today, let alone after Article 50 is filed. So keeping on top of things. And of course, the other thing where I'm going to put my neck on the line and say that I think Brexit will really have an impact is on funding. I've seen a few successful IPOs since Brexit, which is great to see. However, I strongly believe that it's going to put the juices up everyone, as any such economic impact will do. I think that we're in for a tougher time next year than we were this year. I think that I've certainly listened to a leading economist at HSBC, and they mentioned that the exchange rates we've seen so far, we haven't seen nothing yet. It's going to plunge even more. And probably plunge below the euro. That's their belief at the moment. I think it was 90p against the euro and 110 against dollar. That was the prediction that they had. If that happens, who knows? It's all a case of crystal balls. But these guys are certainly cleverer than me, and I'd imagine from an economic perspective, cleverer than most people who'd be watching this. Getting funding is going to be tricky, but we always need to remember. Let's take the banks. The banks are in the business of lending. They need to lend money to stay in business. They need to charge interest. It's just they're going to be more choosy about who they lend it to.
Yeah. No, I get that. And do you know what? We could do a whole show on Brexit.
Do you know what, Ketan? I get a feeling we could do hundreds of shows.
I think we're going to definitely get you back on to do. I think we're going to do business balls and Brexit. I think that's what we're going to do.
Fantastic.
That'll be another show that we're definitely going to do. I mean, we are completely out of time, and but I just want to sort of wrap up on this base that. It is a perceptional thing at the moment. It is still very uncertain, but I think your tips on reassuring your teams, looking at where your opportunities are, reaffirming that relationship with your trading partners, and if you are or in that position to export, go out and export at the moment. This is the best time to do it. I mean, this morning I woke up to $1.24. To the pound, and I'm thinking, do you know what? I'm so glad that I'm not trading in pounds everywhere else, basically, at this moment in time. That's the beauty of a small micro business. You have the fluidity to make these changes quite quickly compared to larger corporations, etc., etc. They have so many processes to go through. But look, it's been an incredible hour. So many bombs. You've dropped so many bombs. I cannot thank you enough for your time.
Thank you so much for hosting me. Do you know what? I've not even started yet.
I know. So look, just before you go, people, I know they can read your thoughts, your views and opinions in the papers and stuff like this, but if you've got anyone out there, whether they're in the UK or out of the UK, and saying, hey, do you know what, I really want to get in touch with Carl or get connected or get involved in something that Carl's working on, how can people reach you? How can they connect with you?
Okay, so the very best place is either social media. I'm very responsive. I'm real person on there. So social media is a great place to find me. My handle is Carl Reader, CarlReader on most sites. My website, carlreader.com, is a good portal where they can access my businesses, they can see some press coverage and so on. In terms of general small business advice, as Ketan very kindly said, I am in the papers. I have a monthly radio show as well that you can listen to. But if you follow me on social media, I'm not shy at coming forwards. So, just click the follow or the like button on Twitter and Facebook, and you will see this stuff come in. And, if you like it, just let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
No, fantastic. No, absolutely fantastic. And we'll get all of those links put up. I know you've got your own group as well in terms of, and we'll get that Facebook group put up there as well. So if anyone wants to sort of trigger and join into that group, that'll be amazing. But literally, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate everything that you've, the wisdom that you've brought to this.
It's been a pleasure.
And I look forward to bringing you back on the show very, very soon.
Fantastic. See you soon.
Brilliant. So guys, that's it. We've wrapped up for the week. Next week we have the wonderful Haroon Rabbani that will be talking about love, life and relationships. And then we've got Samantha Skelly from the US, hopefully either from Thailand or from the US, depending on where she is going to be. And we're going to wrap up for Christmas with Carmen McKell on sales and confidence. But for now, my name's Ketan Makwana. This is from Enterprise Lab. This is the League of Disruptors show, and I'll see you soon.